I'm proud to be a part of a small part of the legacy of an institution that does right, that does it honorably.
Dave Bolger here, and welcome to Had I Known, an exploration of the Hamilton College experience. This week's guest is Pat Hibbard, class of 1999. Okay, to start this week, I have a question, and that is, what is with all these social media posts I'm seeing with these Hamilton-branded face masks? It seems like a really neat thing the school's doing, sending those masks to alums. It's shows a little bit of love to the alums, and a smart marketing move as well, as I see lots of social media posts with people showing off their masks. I say it seems like a cool thing because I wouldn't know. I haven't gotten one, but I sure see them a lot. I'm constantly reminded that I haven't gotten one. No hard feelings at all that I haven't gotten one, yet seems like everyone else has. No big deal. I'm only here every week talking about the school, talking to alums, talking to faculty. I don't need a mask. That's okay. It's okay. Oh, I'm just kidding. Keep showing off those masks. Good for the school. It was a good move. And speaking of all those conversations, if you haven't had a chance to hear all of them yet, if you're like the listener Eli, who checked in this week on social media saying that he's listened to almost every episode, if you go to hadiknown.buzzsprout.com, again, hadiknown.buzzsprout.com, you can get all 17 previous episodes are there for your listening enjoyment. And if you want to be like Eli and check in with us on social media, hit us up, Had I Known Show, at Had I Known Show, across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Or if you want to showcase your Hamilton writing skills and want to be a little bit more verbose, feel free to drop us an email, hadiknownshow@gmail.com. Again, hadiknownshow@gmail.com. Hey, and while you're at it, as you're listening to this show on your favorite podcast platform, how about liking, subscribing, reviewing, starring, hearting, whatever it is? Show us some love on the old podcast platforms there. We'd love to hear from you and love to get the support. And speaking of those podcast platforms, this show is there thanks to Buzzsprout. And if you're thinking about starting your own podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to go. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, if you have a message you want to get out to the world, or if you just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. The idea of starting your own podcast can be overwhelming. Believe me, I know. But it isn't hard when you have the right partners. And Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Not only do they give you a free website and all the tools you need to track how people are listening, they help you get your show listed online in all major podcast directories. Places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, now Amazon, and so many more. Plus, if you sign up using the link in the show notes, Buzzsprout's going to give you a $20 Amazon gift card. That lets them know we sent you and that you support the show. So be sure to check out Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start your podcast. All right, let's get into this week's show. I reached out to this week's guest because anytime I saw news about the California wildfires, he was the first person that came to mind. Pat is the one running into the fires to help put them out. He's a firefighter in San Luis Obisbo. And in many ways, if you knew Pat at Hamilton, that isn't really a surprise. Pat was a beloved figure on campus during the 4 years I was at Hamilton in the late 90s. I honestly don't recall anyone ever having a bad word to say about Pat. He was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, and while there was often immense silliness with Pat, it was not uncommon for him to come up to you on campus on the path or at a party and out of nowhere belt into, a show tune like Oklahoma for some unknown reason. Behind that silliness, there always seemed to be a maturity that suggested, to me at least, an ability to rise above the often superficial concerns of college students, like elements of the social life that most students got wrapped up in. And boy, I'll tell you, that silliness went away fast when we stepped foot on the rugby pitch with him. Anyone who played rugby in the years I was there will tell you that you did not want to face him in practice. Pat was by no means the biggest guy on the team. He wasn't the fastest guy on the team. He very well may have been the best guy on the team because nobody worked harder than him. He never stopped. He was relentless. And even the biggest guy on the team would tell you he hit harder than anybody else. And that was just who Pat was. He was a great guy. You wanted him to be your friend. You were proud to have him as your friend. But as I found out in this conversation, Pat had a lot more going on than a lot of us knew. Now, at the beginning of this show, I introduced Pat as a member of the class of 1999. Technically, that is incorrect. If you look him up in the alumni directory, he's listed as a class of 2000. On the show, we've covered a lot of things that make Hamilton special. One of the things we haven't covered is the honor code. That honor code is something the school is serious about, and I remember in my 4 years there, the students were serious about it as well. I remember being somewhat fearful of it, but also impressed that I was at an institution that had such a thing. There was no honor code at my high school, so it was a different experience for me, and one that I really came to respect. Now, the end of my senior year, the story started to go around that Pat had run afoul of the honor court. And being the person who we all knew Pat to be, it was something we couldn't fathom. So surely he had gotten screwed. Something was wrong, and he was on the wrong end of a misunderstanding. That was how we understood it. And he got screwed, and because of it, he graduated a year late. But in our minds, he was always a member of our class, and that was that. Pat shares that story here, and as you hear him talk about it, you hear nothing but an honorable man. I may have been wrong about the circumstances which led Pat to graduate a year late, but I know I'm not wrong about who he is as a person, and you'll hear that in this conversation. This one's deeply personal for me because of the admiration and affection I have for Pat. And after talking to him and reconnecting with him through this conversation, those feelings only intensified. I love this man. I hope you enjoy this conversation. So here it is. Here's my conversation with Pat Hibbard, forever the class of 1999. I know this guy.
Hey, there he is.
How are you?
Doing, man? Good. You are looking professional in that closet. That's the best damn closet radio broadcasting station I've ever seen.
That's right.
Hey, just a quick question. My son's watching cartoons in the other room. Is the ambient noise okay, or do I need to move to a different spot?
I think you're good. You're good.
All right.
I mean, you heard me interview Doc Woods with the TV on in the background. You know, I had CNN. I had to edit around every time there was a pause. I'd try to lower the volume to cut out the CNN.
Oh man! Hey, so I had this memory that keeps coming back. I want to say it was like one of the first couple of years we were playing rugby, and there was this really chicky song that was on the radio, and it was like you, me, and Big Jeff in your car. And like, we just, we're all sweaty and dirty. And then, we're just driving around. And then this really soft, like girly, and that's my memory is you driving. And
I think singing to Big Jeff, the lyrics.
Probably.
Annoying him to no end. I love you always forever. I remember. It became like the theme song. It came on every ride, and I always had to sing it to whoever was riding shotgun. It was either him or Plex.
That's all right. You still got it. Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you. I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Yeah, doing good. Just got off work yesterday. I was on for a little stretch there. Not as long as some guys have been on for like 40 days, but I was only on for I don't know, a week or so straight. So no, it's good. I got vacation. That's why I scheduled, this time where we could be uninterrupted relatively.
So how many kids? So you mentioned your son. How many kids?
Two.
Two
Yeah,
kids.
I got about a 5-year-old and a little over a 1-year-old.
Oh boy, you're in the
I
thick.
love it. Yeah, you got 2 as well, don't you?
8 and 5. Yeah,
8 and 5. Okay, so similar gap. Yeah. How's it get down the line in about 3 years?
I think it's always hard. It's just the challenges you face change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People say, "Oh, it gets easier at this age." No, it doesn't. It just there's always headaches. It's always a pain in the ass.
Stop lying.
But the thing, and you can appreciate this, but I haven't done it now for a while. The thing that struck me early on and continues to stick with me is how you can love something with every ounce of your being, and at the same exact time want to put them through a wall.
Yeah, for me, I relate. Yeah, like mine is like I just want to yoke them up and just. I don't really want to put them through. I just want to hold them against it up high. That's but same difference. Yeah.
And then you realize, all the things you get mad at them for all the things that you realize are you're deficient in, right? You find all your faults in them, right? Don't do that. That's what I do.
Yeah, one of my favorites is like my wife will say, "I just don't understand why he does that," and I'll be sitting there thinking like, makes perfect sense.
And I know you West Coast kid who went. I don't know how the hell we're gonna get into it. I don't know how the hell you ended up. Tell me how a West Coast kid ends up in Clinton, New York.
Sure. So kind of backtrack a bit. So my dad was in the Navy, and we moved around a lot growing up. Not as much as some kids, but I lived in San Diego 3 different times growing up. I was born there. We moved away. I moved back. Was there for a good stretch. Moved away. Finished high school there. And so in the process of moving around growing up, we lived in Maryland for a couple of years. And my mom was from Maryland. And we had family on the East Coast. And I learned to play lacrosse when we were there. It was, when I was 8th and 9th grade year. And, I just... the change in the seasons, the snow, it was different, from what I was used to. And then the lacrosse thing was, that was, one of my first loves was the game of lacrosse. And so wound up going back to San Diego for high school, and they had a club team there, but never really let go of that idea to, play lacrosse back east somewhere. I was really interested in the Naval Academy because they had lacrosse and they were in Maryland, and my dad was in the Navy, and my uncles, one uncle went to the Air Force Academy, one went to West Point. And so that was kind of my target, but, it just wasn't meant to be. I turned in my application late. I think, something inside me knew, maybe the military is not the best next step for you, but, so I applied to the Naval Academy, but I also applied, my dad went to Wesleyan, to just a shotgun of small colleges. I had the U.S. News and World Report thing, and I was like, okay, what's the best I think I could do? And, it wasn't an option of, not going to college. That was an expectation. It wasn't even a discussion, and so I got into 2, and Hamilton had more snow and better lacrosse, and I had never been there.
Huh. Was there family pressure to follow in the footsteps in the military?
No, that was me. I just thought, I guess I was just, I was exposed to it early. It was something somewhat familiar. And it was neat to me. I like war movies, and it just, I had some friends. I had one guy from the year before me at my high school went, who was talking it up and stuff like that. But, it just wasn't meant to be for me. And, I wound up going to Hamilton.
I have a vivid memory of our freshman year walking across campus at night. I don't know. We were coming back from a party or something, and it started to snow. And you were in shorts and maybe a vest, and I'm bundled up. And you were having the time of your life. It was early, one of the first snowfalls of the year.
Yeah.
Diving in doing snow angels. And I'm like, who is this kid?
Grossly underprepared for the Central New York winter, man. Oh my gosh. That was a shock. Yeah. Cause I'd done, a little bit of snow here and there. I think we had gone up to New Hampshire when we lived in Maryland, gone up to New Hampshire and gone skiing and visited relatives and experienced a little bit of snow in Maryland or in Kansas City when I visited my grandparents. But yeah, not that 2 months of gray, and like there's the picturesque snow, that they probably put on the publications. And then there's, the majority snow, which was a gray slush.
That's right. That's right. Every doorway in every building just got progressively worse and worse and darker from all the muck you pull in every
and I learned a lot of good stuff in Hamilton, one of them being layers.
That's right.
Layers, kid, layers, and good footwear.
Well, right. Well, I had to explain to you early on, Pat, shorts probably not a good idea when the snow starts.
Shorts are good year round in California. Yeah. No, and feel like, with most things, it takes a few lumps for me to learn. So that was part of the process.
So you mentioned lacrosse. So were you recruited to play lacrosse, or how did you come to be on the team?
I don't know if recruited's the word. I think the coach called and talked to me, and but I never felt like my lacrosse ability. And like I said, I don't know. I never felt like my lacrosse ability was part of my. I just felt like I just got lucky, getting accepted. and but I did talk with the coach prior to acceptance, and I did get a letter from Derek Hazard in the mail that summer before we showed up on was it North? Was that our dorm?
Yes.
The first year?
Yes.
North?
Yes.
The first floor in North. And I remember it was like I got this handwritten letter from Derek. Hi, my name is Derek Hazard. We are going to be roommates. It was really cordial and basically, he gave me his phone number. So let's call and talk. And we did that a little bit. And there's those early memories. They're so impressive.
Yeah.
Gosh, I just in the anticipation of having this conversation with you, it's been a neat journey sifting through my experience but the imprint that first 6 months or first few months had of that first floor, the guys who were there, just Brian Holt and rugby and it stands out so much. It was a formative time.
Yeah. And you show up. I think in retrospect, everyone was in the same boat, but I didn't realize it at the time, trying to pretend like I had my shit together and knew what I was doing. I wasn't petrified, and you know what I mean? And thinking I was the dumbest kid in the area, why I didn't belong, and everyone's just white knuckling it, just trying to make it through, That
was it, man. Yeah. So my dad had told me the story about when he went to Wesleyan. He was a Kansas City kid, and he showed up with 2 bags, and my dad, he doesn't use a lot of words, but the words he uses count. And so the internal message that I got was, okay, 2 bags, I show up at a small liberal arts college, 2 bags. All right, this is the deal. And I got a flight from San Diego to Utica. I got a taxi from Utica to the Carriage Motor Inn. I spent the night at the Carriage Motor Inn, and I remember, fortunately, I had my lacrosse stick and ball, so I could just go for walks, and just throw the ball and stuff like that. And then the next morning, I got a cab from the Carriage Motor Inn to the Hamilton College campus, and I was just like, I don't even know where to go here. I don't know where to start. That looks like an admissions building. Start around there, and I was there early and had my 2 bags and eventually I got to the right spot. And, but yeah, just scared, scared, alone. But, it come to find out, that while Pat did not have his shit together, Hamilton did, and that was the safety net, and I remember early, I didn't do, a bunch of pre-stuff, I wasn't there in advance for sports or the, like the camping trip that some of the kids went on. But, but I met, my, Ian Dumaine, John McNaughton, and Derek Hazard, and that was our room, and I met you, and then I remember them doing the honor code with us.
Yep.
Early on in that root building, and I remember thinking that's really cool, that they emphasize this here.
Right.
We'll circle back to that later in the story. But I remember being impressed by that we all had to line up, go into that little building from way back when and sign the honor code, and that was important. That was emphasized.
Yeah.
I remember respecting that early on.
Yeah. I remember being frightened of it.
Yeah.
Wow, this is serious,
Yeah. And when I didn't graduate, it was an honor code violation. I was academically dishonest, and I was lying. I don't think it was a highly malicious plan of mine, but I made a poor decision turning that paper in, and Hamilton held me accountable, and that was part of my journey in learning about the importance of honor. And if you put your name to something, that's all you. Mm-hmm. And if there's anything in there that's not you, you need to note it appropriately and quote it and all that stuff. And it was the right thing to do, and it was I'm grateful for it, and it was, it was hard at the time, but it was, it's what was the right thing to do. And I'm glad Hamilton stands for that and stood for that. And that's how it went down.
Can you, so what happened? Because my recollection was, Hibbard got screwed.
No. So Hibbard screwed himself. Yeah. It was, so I had done, Hamilton, it wasn't all roses for me. I had been, I started taking ownership of my mental health while I was at Hamilton. My junior year, I had a significant depressive episode where I needed, I got, medication, and, but like I said about Hamilton, it was a safe place where, I knew I didn't want to go home. I knew the answer wasn't at home for me, because I'd wanted, part of leaving home was the lacrosse and the snow, but part of it was also just, running away from uncomfortable feelings at home. And, the feelings came with me to Hamilton. And by my junior year, I was bipolar. I felt I had to act a certain way around other people in order to gain their approval. And I didn't know this consciously at the time, but, and then, I would kind of shut down on myself. I didn't have the tools to take care of myself well. And, basically second semester, junior year, I really, I wasn't sleeping well or much at all. And my energy level had tanked, but, and I called my dad, and I said, hey, this is what's going on. And he said, there's got to be someone there who can help you. And, my dad in his wisdom knew that, the answer wasn't come home to me. The answer, and I went to the counseling center, and I started talking. I think her name was Jan. She was a really, really nice person. And that hooked me up with a psychiatrist in Clinton, and who I saw for the rest of my time at Hamilton. And I got on some medication, which, I'm not on anymore, but that was part of my journey of learning how to take ownership of myself and my well-being. And, you know, a lot of it goes back to, you know, my mom's passing and the alcoholism in the family. And
when did your mom pass?
I was 7 years old. Yeah, it was like 1985. And you know, it was just, you know, stuff you know, because it's been a journey, but knowing what I know now, it's just Hamilton is where I started dealing with my stuff, you know, as opposed to running from it. And I didn't do it completely or wholeheartedly, but I did it to the best of my ability with the help that was available. And, you know, the greatest gift that Hamilton gave me was the friends I got there, and the people who helped get me through. You know, good people.
Were you open about what you're going through?
With some,
you were. Okay.
Yeah, with some, not with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't. You know, you were a friend, but you know, we didn't really live together at that time, and we didn't see each other all that often. But you know, the folks who I was closest with and around the most knew.
Okay.
And they were supportive.
Well, good.
Yeah. And but so, you know, that had gone down my junior year, and by my senior year, you know, I think one of the mantras was, I got to get the fuck out of here. You know, I'm ready to leave.
Yeah.
And I had a beef, you know, and I think part of, you know, I needed something to resent. And it, you know, and I never showed it openly, but, you know, I kind of resented the, you know, I felt it was, you know, there was a portion of the student body that was uptight, stuffy, and I guess just elitist, you know, and I think, you know, part of that is, you know, me just needing at that time, feeling like I had to have something to push against, you know, that I am not. So, you know, part of my mindset at that time was, look, you know, I just got to do what I do to get out of here. And my senior year, I had taken, you know, I'd got onto the thing of, okay, let's take some easier classes. Let's finish out my major. I was a psychology major and doing the pre-med coursework because my dad is a retired doctor. And I thought, you know, he seems to have a good life. I'll just try that. And psychology was the intro class that I looked around and I, you know, quarter or half the people were asleep, and I was really into what the guy was saying. And I thought, okay, I guess this is my major. You know, I wasn't in love with being a student, and but I wasn't willing to go to my dad and say, hey, Dad, you know, like this college thing, you know, is this, you know, my heart's not in it.
Yeah.
And but you know, I was too chicken shit to have that conversation, you know. So it was like my duty to finish out. And my senior year, I'd taken some classes, and I took one that was, I think it was primarily lecture. And I think the weight of the class, as far as the grade went, was at the end, you either took a final or you did a paper. And, you know, I just been lazy, didn't do the reading. You know, I probably showed up to most of the classes, but when it came to the end, you know, I had this doomsday black and white thinking of, you know, I cannot do that, that final. I have to do a paper. I have to. And so I opted for the paper, and, you know, it was classic, you know, wait till the last minute, which I've tried to get out of currently as well. And,
if you figure out how to do that, let me know, because I still suffer from that as well.
I did better at the fire academy. You know, it was late at night, and I'm just slapping this thing together. And there was a part of me in my stomach said, Pat, you know, this probably isn't a good idea, you know, but that fear drove me most in those days. And the fear of, you know, no, this is the only option. This has to be done. I've got to slap together and throw it in. And the professor did the right thing. You know, he called me during senior week and said, you know, Pat, I have a problem with your paper. And, you know, I feel like some of your work is not your own. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you graduate with your class, and I'm going to research it over the summer, and I'll get back to you. I said, sir, if it's, I'll come in and I'll tell you what's mine, what's not. I don't want to live in the in-betweens.
Wow.
That was me owning it. And
Sure.
And there was kind of a pause on the phone, it was the dorm phone. And he said, what, you're going to come in and tell me what's yours and what's not? I said, yeah, I'd like this to be resolved. And so I went in, and, scary, kind of had a bad feeling about it. And there was the professor and the dean or assistant dean and the student representative, who was a friend of mine. And they laid it out there, and I looked at it, and there was just so much red on there that wasn't, and I was reading, and I was like, yep, no, yeah. Yeah. I didn't get screwed at all. I turned in something I shouldn't have. And they called me on it rightfully. And they held me accountable for my actions. And I cried, but I walked out of there, knowing I wasn't going to graduate. I had to call my dad and tell him, hey, those plane tickets, you and grandma got. And I walked out of there, knowing that was going to be hard and uncomfortable, and but there was a sense of, I guess, pride in that. Even though I did something wrong, I did something right at the end.
Sure.
And I walked out of there knowing, that, my mom, is dead and I'm still alive, and I know that may seem like a weird thing to say, but, leaving that meeting with those folks, it was like, I'm alive, I'm walking out into a beautiful spring day, and I'm not going to graduate. Yeah. I got to take a class at San Diego State this summer and graduate with the next class. But there's a lot to be thankful for, and so, I spent it was a lot of hard conversations, but no, Hamilton absolutely did what they said they were going to do that first week.
Right.
And I'm proud to be a part of a small part of a legacy of an institution that does right, that does it honorably.
It worked the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah. And, I wish I could say that was my only lesson in ethics my entire life, but, I've relearned, lessons like it. But, that's part of my journey. And I've used that story, with others when things don't, when they have hard events, that, like if they don't pass an academy or, things come up where it's like, it seems like, half your world is just sheared and falling off. And I say, hey, look, this is what I did. Mm-hmm. And, I'm here, I'm happy, I'm productive, and I'm contributing, and it'll get better, so yeah, in a strange way, it was a gift. I wouldn't have said that at the time.
Yeah, sure.
but no, it was the right thing.
Well, listen, to hear you tell that story, and to say when you got called on it by the professor, for you to walk in and say, well, here's what it is. I'm going to be honest with you about what I did and didn't do. That's the Pat Hibbard that I think anyone who knew you during that time would expect that to be the reaction from you. And I think the reason why I think the reaction that I always heard, and as I understood to be this story then and still for the past 20 years, was Hibbard got screwed, is because I don't think anyone could fathom that Pat Hibbard would do anything but do the right thing. And we all make mistakes, and for you to instantly own up to the mistake and accept it, I think just speaks to exactly who everyone knew you to be, because you were, whether you know it or not, a beloved figure on that campus. And it's really interesting for me to hear you say you felt like you had to act a certain way. I think part of what made you such a beloved figure on campus was you were the guy who would come up and start singing show tunes in the middle of a party, and had everybody doubled over in laughter, because you didn't, the premise was you didn't give a shit about what anybody thought. You were going to be distinctly who you were, and that's what people love you.
Yeah, and there's a mix, and I very much appreciate that, David. I'm learning to be open to feel that. I think there was a part of me back then that, simply put, felt defective, and that I didn't deserve any. Well, not any, but I just didn't deserve, I guess, that much love, and but I really appreciate you saying that. And I remember Dan Lieber in the dorm room saying, like, Patty, let's fight this thing. I just, the best I could say it back then was, I said, Dan, it didn't look good. I went in there and it didn't look good, and we kind of let it rest and we moved on. And but no, I appreciate you saying those things, man. Yeah, it's
of course.
Yeah, it's.
I will tell anybody that when I tell rugby stories, and I would like to get into some rugby stories with you here, because I don't want to waste the opportunity. But I will never forget. We finished our last game the fall of our senior year. We lost in the Northeast Regional Championships for the second year in a row. Damn it! And I was, sad, coming to coming to the conclusion and recognition that this was my last meaningful rugby game. We had the spring season ahead of us, but those were always tournaments and friendlies and so forth. And I was like, wow, this is coming to an end, and we lost. But I was holding it together. I was fine. And we were all doing post-game hugs and handshakes and so forth. And I turned around and saw you, and I lost it. I started crying my eyes out because of you, and it was the love I had for you and just what you represented for that team and my experience on campus.
Oh man,
and it hit me hard. And that was all because of you, and you were the heart and soul of that team, and it's because of who you were as a person.
I wasn't ready for that one. I was bracing myself for a lot of other stuff, but I appreciate that, bud. Gosh, those were just some fantastic times with some fantastic people.
So you went to campus intending to play lacrosse.
Yeah.
And the rugby was a ragtag bunch. How did you get caught up in the mix?
I loved it. Oh God, it was just. I mean, it was. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pirate, but a good pirate, and I felt like, part of that was being on the rugby team, it was the lack of structure, but still loosely structured, even though, it may have been a practice, it was a social practice, it was just so great being out there with a bunch of people that were just looking to, get physical and have fun. And the carpooling to the games was cool. There was just so much that was, it felt more free than the rest of the time on campus, I think is the way it felt to me. It was all Brian Holt down the hall.
Oh, you're right. The RRA.
That was it.
Same. That's how I got looped into it as well. Yeah.
I was like, oh, Bolger's doing it. And then Hazard got involved, and how the captain seniors just had these stacks of old Milwaukee boxes, from the floor to the ceiling of their room on the dark side. And then they just pop open that swivel window.
They just climb right out onto
they climb right out, and that's where we'd meet for practice.
Yeah.
And the runs in the Glen, and it was just so. It just felt like what sport was meant to be.
Yeah.
It's just fun and free and enriching, and we played to win, but the guys had fun, and it just wasn't. We wanted to do well, and we practiced, but it wasn't life or death. It wasn't It wasn't so serious that it took the fun out of it.
Right. I mean, you always hear things like for the love of the game, and boy, it had that we had to be doing it for the love of the game, because we were driving ourselves 4 hours to games. We were buying our own uniforms. We were paying our own way. Yeah, of course.
That shitty practice field with rocks all over it. Oh man. Yeah. I remember I went back, for the botched reunion, though the younger classes did really well. But they had the norovirus outbreak, and that rightfully so deterred a lot of people. But I went back and saw the pitch now. They got a beautiful setup.
Sure, right? Yeah, that old slanted rocky field is now flat and it's got a scoreboard and oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was such a cool introduction to the school, the people at the school, the fun that could be had at the school.
Yeah.
At the very beginning when I was there. And then the road trips, God, I loved taking those drives in the fall in central New York, upstate New York, the greater New England area. It was just that quilt of the change of the colors and the leaves turning. It was just, I loved every second of it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great. I mean,
we were a collection. The thing that was interesting to me is, a lot of people talk on this show about how the school, despite being so small, is so siloed. But yet here we had this rugby team, which had, I think, almost every fraternity represented. We had athletes from multiple sports who typically didn't always interact with each other. You had a bunch of people who weren't in fraternities living in all majors represented. I mean, it was truly a melting pot of the school, especially when you include the women's team, which was equally as mixed up and crazy and diverse. Yeah. And for some reason it worked, when we all got together, it was all that other stuff melted away, and the cliques and the garbage of the school did not carry over onto that rugby pitch. Not
at all. No, it was terrific, man. I hope when I went back, it seemed like it's still a similar experience for the current folks.
That's good. That's good. And we were all a bunch of athletes who were attracted to the idea that there wasn't a coach.
No, and the no coach thing made it better.
Yeah.
When we did have a coach, it was like, this guy's kind of cramping our style.
That's right. We'd show up, play these teams all with matching uniforms that were, had practice equipment. We'd roll up in 4 cars that were blowing smoke out of the back and dented and beat up. We all would mismatched jerseys. Yeah, exactly. Guys crushing out butts before they take the field. And we'd roll them. They was like, what the hell just happened? Who are these people?
The Exiles, man.
That's right.
That's a great name.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh man.
So after the unfortunate end to college, what was the plan? What was the path? What happened after that?
Yeah. So when I was that senior year, the second semester, the psychiatrist I was seeing said, "Okay, what are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know, man. I don't know." He said, "Well, have you heard of AmeriCorps?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Okay, this is what it's about. You're basically, it's like the Peace Corps, but you're in the U.S. and you serve, you help communities out. Maybe you should look into it." And so I said, "Okay, that sounds like a good thing." When I was my fraternity, I was the philanthropy chair for at least a year, and we went into Utica and we did some construction work at a home for, it was mothers, I think, with substance abuse problems. I was in, I think, Key Club in high school. I really enjoyed and felt good about community service. And I like the idea of, getting into something that wasn't school. So I applied to AmeriCorps, and I still knew like I had to knock that class out that summer in San Diego, but
that was the summer right after we all had left.
Submit that just so I could get that behind me, and I wound up getting accepted to AmeriCorps, and I went and did 10 months of service in Charleston, based out of Charleston, South Carolina. But we did all sorts of different good stuff. We worked, we built some trails near an elementary school and tutored kids in North Carolina. We went to the Florida Keys and did trail work. Work at state parks. What else did we do? Did some other cool stuff. We worked at an inner city youth sports camp around Durham or Raleigh, North Carolina. So I was on a team of 12 other people, and we were based out of Charleston at this old Navy base, and we went out and we did work as a team in these different avenues, and that in that service you got like an educational credit. So they put roughly 5,000 towards whatever it is you want to do next. And so did my time in AmeriCorps, and I somewhere in there, Dave, I know I took an MCAT, like a medical school prep class. Maybe it was before, maybe it was after AmeriCorps, but at one point I decided, okay, like I'm done with school. I need to take a break. Like that's not for me either. And I didn't do very well on the test. But so at the end of AmeriCorps, which was my next big thing after Hamilton, I knew I liked working in the outdoors and I liked working with kids. Those are the two things I liked. And they had a job fair at the end of AmeriCorps, and one of them was for this thing called Eckerd Youth Alternatives, and it was this wilderness program for at-risk youth in in various forests, primarily in the Southeast. And so I thought, that's a nice combination of kids and outdoors. Seems, I just need to figure out what to do next. And so I applied for it. And eventually I got accepted to that. And so for the following 2 years, I worked with at-risk youth in the Croatan National Forest, basically on the central coast of North Carolina. And I lived there and surfed there. And that's probably one of the strongest educational experiences I had. Because when I was doing that, it was such a setup where if you had a chink in your armor, these kids were going to exploit it. They were going to find it. And I've worked with inmates since, with the fire department, and it's a similar kind of setup. The inmates are adults, so they're more polished manipulators. But the kids, it was all in the open. It was all straight ahead. The manipulation, that is. And so I had to learn to deal with my stuff in the course of helping them deal with their stuff. And the point of it was, you get these kids who school's not working, and they're kind of on a path towards possibly jail, but they're not quite old enough, or their offenses aren't grave enough. And so they put them in this wilderness setting, this program. And, you basically, you go on, you live outside, and you cook over a campfire, and you go on canoe trips, various rivers, and you work their program, and it involves setting goals and holding them accountable, and life skills. And there was school involved too. They had to do math and writing in order to get their meals done, or make their shopping lists, process the trips they go on mentally. And that was a powerful experience for me. So 2 years I did that, and I learned, I developed a belief that there's something out there greater than me that's willing to help me. And that the transition from living on fear to faith happened around that time. And it hasn't been 100% on either side. We all, at least I've definitely had my struggles, but that was part of that experience. And by the end of that, I realized, okay, and another reason why I did that is because I wanted some parenting skills. And my dad did the best he could, but it was hard, with my mom passed, and he had stuff of his own to deal with. That I wanted to practice on other people's kids. And
that was a conscious decision?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and to gain some skills, some life skills. And it helped. It was definitely part of it. So by the end of those 2 years, it was kind of, I realized, okay, maybe I don't want to work with kids. But I also was feeling like I was on the East Coast, so I had been to college on the East Coast for 4 years, and I did 1 year in AmeriCorps, then I did 2 more years in this wilderness program, all in the Eastern Seaboard areas. And I was kind of missing home, and, I was realizing that, my dad and my sister are in, on the West Coast, and, life's precious and you don't get the time back. And I think I need to find something closer to home, to be close to him. And, so I moved back in with Dad, in my, I'm around the kind of early to mid 20s range by this time. And I started coaching lacrosse at the old high school, helping out, I think, with the JV program and painting houses on the side. And then, I had that thought of like, I got to figure something out. Like I got to make a decision here. It's like, this is, I was thinking like, okay, I feel like I need to be building some kind of security. I need to be laying a foundation for whatever's coming after this.
Right.
And I want to be, responsible for myself. I want to be able to support myself. And so
that moment around that age when you realize, oh, I'm becoming a grown ass man now, it's time to to act like one is a scary moment.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I started looking online. I said, okay. And I was living in San Diego, and it just got too busy for me. Southern California is just too much time spent sitting in traffic and looking for parking. And I just, I didn't want a lot of my life to go to that. And I thought, okay, where can I be that's close to my family, my dad and my sis that are in Southern California, but that's, especially after living in the South, man, that slower pace of life where people, they'd stop and they'd ask you how you are. And then they go like this and they listen and they'd wait for you to finish. And, they wouldn't keep moving in the other direction. They would, it was really charming. And I missed those open spaces, and I missed that slower pace that I experienced in the South. So I had remembered driving up to San Francisco to see my buddy Nico from San Diego. I went by this really charming area where you could see cows on one side of the freeway and you could see ocean on the other.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, maybe there's something to that.
Huh.
Yeah. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to live in San Diego. I'm going to live San Luis Obispo, that area. Okay. Yeah. But what am I going to do? I gotta figure something out. I need something that's going to pay the bills and health insurance, all that those kinds of grown-up thinkings. And I got online, I did a job search, and San Luis Obispo job search. And the only thing that really sounded interesting was firefighter. And so I said, okay, I think I could get down with that. It's pretty physical. They're helping people. That's just the thing inside of me that sounds right now. I think that's what I'm going to do. And so I
had the thought of pursuing that as a career ever occurred to you prior to that?
No, I had thought about park ranger, when I was into the wilderness setting, but a little too much alone time. And, my thinking can be crazy. So it's good to be around people to bounce things off of. So no, that was really the beginning. I mean, I found a picture of myself when I was a little kid, like with a fire helmet on, but I don't remember ever having those thoughts or plans or anything like that. So that was it. I was going to move to San Luis Obispo and become a firefighter. And I knew one guy there, and I bombed up there one morning. I loaded up the station wagon that my dad gave me, and got to the Madonna Inn. I called my buddy and I said, hey man, and he's, it actually he wasn't all that close at the time. He was more of a friend of a friend. And he said, who's this? I said, remember we met in Vegas? Oh yeah, man. How you doing? Yeah. What's up? I'm like, oh, I'm moving to San Luis Obispo. He's like, okay, when you coming up? I was like, well, I'm here. He's like, where are you staying? I was like, I got room and I can fold the back seat down in the station wagon. I'll figure something out. And he's like, nah, man, come stay on my couch. Oh, okay. And
you learn from the kids. You learn how to manipulate from the kids.
right. Oh, wishful thinking. Yeah. And so that's how it began in the area I am now. And, I found some work, I've learned about myself. The office setting is not for me. Another one of the really appealing things about rugby was so my wife's a preschool teacher, which means like she can understand my level of thinking. She says, there's a couple different kinds of kids. There's the sensory seekers, and those are the ones that, run their head into the wall just to see what it feels like over and over again. And then there's the sensory averse kids that, like are less likely to do that. And that's an oversimplification, but
sure.
I'm definitely more of a sensory seeker. I know that. And rugby, that's one of the, I didn't appreciate it so much at the time. I mean, I knew it felt like good to me, but just that the moving, the sweating, the contact,
those of us that had to practice against you and got hit by you on a regular basis didn't appreciate it either, Pat. We didn't appreciate your sensory seeking when you were slamming us in practice when we were trying to take it easy.
I feel that same way about my son now.
Well, good. Payback's a bitch.
So that was that was what I was going for. So, I started knocking on doors and talking to guys in the fire department up here, and started getting some points in the right direction. And meanwhile, I was crashing at my buddy's place. I found some part-time work, some landscaping work, and eventually I got on as a seasonal firefighter, which is pretty common in California because of our fire season.
Yeah.
And then boom, I was just like a proud, like when the dog like sits in the front seat and shoves his whole chest and head out the window, it's just like, look at me now, And when I finally got that seasonal firefighter job where I was, a professional fireman, it felt so good. And I was so proud, to be serving my community, my state, others. It just, it just felt right, and the organization I work for, it's called CAL FIRE, or the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. It's a mixture of municipal firefighting, which you'd see more in cities, and the wildfire, the large scale vegetation fires.
There's been a little bit of that going on now. Yeah. We've heard about it.
Yeah. You might've seen it on TV.
Yeah. Are you, I mean, I assume given where you are and what's going on out in California, you're involved in fighting those fires, I assume.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's part of my mission.
How's it going for you?
We're stretched pretty thin right now.
Yeah.
This season is much heavier than most in terms of fires and acres burned and people deployed. Yeah, it's tough, and it's, we've been through situations like this before, and we'll get through this one. But no, this is a marathon kind of pace. It's unfortunately, I've been working with the department where I've been around for about 15 years, and I have some vacation peppered in there to get a break, and I haven't had it nearly as rough as some. But yeah, no, that's definitely part of what I do, and the department I work for is one of their strong suits is managing those large scale, catastrophic fires.
And what is that? And pardon the ignorance, and if these are not the right questions, I'm sorry. But what is your role? What are you doing when you're going to battle these fires? You're not standing next to the truck with a hose, I imagine.
Well, no, I mean, there's different ways to do it. So on the, a fire in a building, you want to confine it to a box. Whether it's the kitchen or the kitchen in one bedroom. You want to get a box around it, and you want to hold it in that box. That's your objective, and to extinguish it. So when we have these fires in the wildland, when they get really big, you use roads, you used ridge lines, you might use bulldozers. You build that box around it. Sometimes, I'll pull up with my engine, and me and my crew will take hose out, and we'll start at the road, and we'll start putting out the outer edge of that fire, and we'll close off that box. We'll control the perimeter, and then we'll make sure the stuff inside is out. But yeah, there's putting water on the fire to put the outer edge out. There's getting out ahead of where the fire is going, and putting fire on the ground ahead of it to burn out the fuel, so that when it reaches there, it has nothing to burn and it goes out. There's different ways to do it, but those are kind of, simply put, the most common. And it's just gotcha. when they get so big, it just takes more stuff to do that.
Sure.
But yeah, you're just you're building. You want to identify your box, and you want to keep it in the box.
And how's it going with these fires now? You mentioned that you'll get through it. Do you feel like there's progress being made? Is there?
Oh, heck yeah!
It feels like there's media obsession about these, and then it goes away, and then you never hear about it. But meanwhile, there's people like you out there still battling your ass off to keep these things under control.
I get emails from work that are twice a day that talk about the percentage containment on the large ones, and how many acres burned, and kind of the pertinence of how many structures damaged, maybe lives lost, and communities threatened. So no, they're out there doing good work right now. Like I said, I'm home, with my son, but the folks are out there making progress, and so far they've all gone out, in history.
Right.
But there's a lot of big fires right now in the state, and it's a big state, and there's just a lot of people deployed. And like before I got off yesterday, we're stretched really thin at home, to the point where, knock on wood, I think if there was another big one, you start sliding resources. California is really good about this. That's been another neat thing to learn. And I've enjoyed the educational process of, learning about the fire service and emergency management, and, the problem solving of it. California, we do this every year, many times. So we have a lot of people who have a lot of experience in having a disaster and quickly coming up with a management strategy, staff, plan, and camp to support the forces that are mitigating this disaster. It's really impressive to be a part of it. And I'm a really, really, really small, speck in this great big, powerful machine that works on it. But it's neat to be a part of, and to see it. It still impresses me today to see, within 24 or 36 hours that, you have a large, fire going on. We're talking 1,000 acres, and nearby you have this camp that erects, with food to eat, sometimes places to sleep, or people there to get you to a place to sleep. You got resupply of tools. You got bathrooms. In some cases, you got showers, and you have people working around the clock to get you rested and back out there, operationally. And it's impressive, Dave. Yeah.
And how long are you on for when you're working? I mean,
it varies. Depends on the big instance. My department tends to do 24-hour shifts, so you're on for 24, off for 24. Okay. It usually doesn't work out to be that clean, a little more on than off. But and then sometimes it's 12-hour shifts with other agencies, and that doesn't, usually it's more like 16 or 18. But,
yeah.
But it's I'm really grateful to be a part of it, and I tell you, Hamilton has served me well in that communication piece. The emphasis they put on, and they told it to us early, on spoken and written communication, the ability to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
And I'll be writing emails and I'll be like, no, not good enough. I'm gonna trim the fat off this. Okay, let's read it. Like, what's my voice saying? And same thing, like when I'm addressing a group, that matters. That's important. That a big part of that started at Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing it, first of all, and please
appreciate it, man.
Please be safe. Please be safe.
I will. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about you during the seeing all this news about the fires. You're the first person I thought of.
Oh, thanks, man. No, I will continue to do my best and get home safely. Yeah, no, and I got to put a plug in for my wife. She's wonderful. Because I couldn't do what I do without her support at home. I just love her so much, and she makes it possible. It's really good life, and it's good work, and it's great to do it with her.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Pat in the carriage in with his lacrosse stick and ball, not knowing what the hell is going to happen. Looking back, anything you wish you had known?
I think if someone would have said, "Hey, I know you're scared, and I know you got a lot of mixed up feelings in there, but it's going to be okay." There's good people where you're going to be, and you're going to meet them, and you're going to get to know them, you're going to become friends with them, and there's help out there, and it's going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, it's okay, and it will serve you down the line.
You're one of a kind, brother. You're one of a kind.
Oh man, it's great to see you. Yeah. And thank you for doing what you're doing, man. I'm no joke. I have been hooked on your podcast. I just listened to two yesterday. I was driving. I was going on a long drive, getting back home, and I'm glad.
Look, I'm no bullshitting. You were a beloved figure on campus, and I always loved you dearly and still do. So I was thrilled that you were willing to do this.
You too, brother. You too. I'm glad to see things are going well. You look well.
Yeah. I'm catching up to you.
That's what I was talking about.
Right. Ball is beautiful. I know.
Yeah. But Dave, I just sincerely, it's been I'm glad I had another week to process. It's been a great, just journey of gratitude for all of my experiences there, and just just the wonderful people I got to be around there. I still just have so many just dear feelings about dear people that I got to be with when I was there, and it's thanks to the prompting, because I think I did, I swept it. I didn't know it was something I didn't want to look at for a long time.
Sure.
And and I really, I strive to be an ethical leader in my current position. I'm a fire captain, so I have to supervise others and stuff. And that stuff's important. And it was, in the process of being thankful for Hamilton, it just opened the door for being thankful for so much. And after I went to that, the second half of the alumni game, a couple years ago, I took a walk around campus. And it was not the same feeling I had as 18-year-old Pat being there. It seemed smaller. It seemed warmer. And it was because I was in a different place,
That's good.
It seemed far less intimidating. And just keep up the good work, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And I'm glad to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, it's a good life, man. I'm gonna make it last as long as I can.
Attaboy.
Yeah. All right, love you, buddy.
All right, buddy, love you. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, we'll see you.
I love the guy. I just love him. Great to reconnect with a dear friend. I hope you enjoyed his story because it's an important one to hear. It's an important one to hear because we need to continue to do the right thing about mental health. If there are students listening and you're struggling, reach out for help, talk to somebody, because you're hearing there with Pat what seeking out help and talking to the right people and getting the right help can do for you. I'm so happy to hear him be happy. I hope he continues to be safe. I think about him constantly. The world is lucky to have people like Pat Hibbard on the front lines doing the brave work for us. Thank you, Pat. You have been listening to Had I Known on WHCL-FM, WHCL.org, hadiknown.buzzsprout.com, Had I Known Show on social media. As always, my thanks to Dr. Michael Woods for supplying all the music on this show. And as always, Doc is going to play us out. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Had I Known podcast show on your radio or take it to go.